I came out of that interview with him wanting that man to be manager of Manchester United.
Andy, thank you so much for coming on here. You've been on United People's TV previously, and we had a kind of long old chat. The reason I've got you on here is to talk about your interview with Erik that's coming out in the latest United We Stand episode. I'll leave the link to UWS Mag in the comments. First things first, congratulations. I mean, I think you've interviewed, is that every United manager so far that you've interviewed for the Mag now?
Yeah, not all of them for the Mag, but yeah, I've done all of them. Yeah, so it was good. It was good.
It's been considering Erik ten Hag, according to certain members of the press, has lost half of the dressing room this week, and considering he's just been named Premier League Manager of the Month and Harry Maguire's just won Player of the Month, it's not bad going. Is what sort of impression did you get? Because obviously you had the chance to sit with him for an hour away from the cameras, right? And I think I was watching your little video you did with the United, and you mentioned that taking him away from that sort of press conference environment was quite a nice situation to get him in. How did he come across? How do I'm not saying that you're not a body language expert, but how do you think he is pressure wise and coping with what's going on right now?
I think he's fine. I think he's got a very tough job, but I came out of that interview with him wanting that man to be manager of Manchester United and feeling that I would support him and that he needs support. I think it's an incredibly difficult job for any human. I think if you put Pep Guardiola in tomorrow, it would be difficult because of the size of the club, the pressures, the demands, the players he's dealing with as he builds his project. But he said one thing to me that said, you might just see clouds, but I see sunlight through the clouds. And there's been times this season where I've been massively frustrated, like any Manchester United fan. Newcastle at the weekend was awful. Chelsea was much more encouraging, but I wanted to see a bit more of Erik the person, not just to see him in press conference mode. I'm about to go to a press conference now, and he's quite defensive. And I wanted to get him talking about him, about his background, get him smiling. And he did that, and pretty funny. He was having a go at me, joking with me at times. And it's not a charisma that you always see, obviously, because he's quite a serious man. He's a football addict, but
yeah,
it was great for him to do the interview for United We Stand. I think he knew who he was speaking to. Most of our readers are match-going fans. He wants them on side. He wants their support. He needs their support. But when I tweeted a few days ago that I'd left that interview wanting him to be manager, the reaction was pretty unanimous. I think fans will back the manager over the players because it's been pretty problematic with the players, not just with the current manager, but with all the post-Ferguson managers. And if left unchecked, player power can get pretty ugly. And he's got a tough job controlling that dressing room.
I mean, it has been. He's had a lot of like high-profile decisions, really, like the Ronaldo situation, the De Gea situation, and obviously the ongoing Jadon Sancho situation. I've always been a big advocate and a big supporter of his. I can see what he wants to do and what he tries to do. Do you think sort of a bit too much is made about the coldness of how he seems and how he's approached? Because he does have that stern sort of exterior. I've spoken to quite a few followers of United People's TV. They kind of came across from Ajax with Erik ten Hag, and they were like, it's kind of like the Dutch persona, and it's seen as rude and sort of abrasive, but that's just kind of how he is from a cultural perspective, rather than him being an arsehole.
Yeah, I don't think he's an arsehole. I think he's a good person. I think if you get him on the subjects that he's interested in, cycling, football, a bit more football, then he's really engaging. If you take him to areas of his life where he can smile, like I got him to talk about being a fan. And within a few minutes, he was talking about getting chased by Campbell fans. I'm running for my life. And then he'd been on a coach when the windows went through, and about the atmosphere, and asking me about my experiences of traveling around Holland, because I wrote about Ajax Feyenoord for a Derby's book that I did. And I liked him. I could have come away from that interview thinking, nah, this isn't the right man. And I'm not even saying now that things are going to return to Manchester United being the dominant force in English football. Because as he said in the interview, you've got state-funded rivals, you've got incredibly wealthy rivals, you've got some of the best players in the league, in the world playing in the Premier League. So he's got a tough job. That said, Manchester United's recruitment has been particularly poor in the last decade. And if we're asked to even judge Erik's signings right now, there's going to be serious doubts there. So my job wasn't be a PR merchant for him. I had serious concerns of my own. I'm like, what on earth has gone on this season? because most of the games have been really poor. Results have not been good enough. League position shows that. Why can't the team hold on to onto their leads? Sat in Istanbul a week ago after an hour and you're 3-1 up. You shouldn't be losing a game from 3-1. And he gave all his opinions why. He gave all his views why. And asked him, when you sign a player, is it essential that he's played in Holland before? And he defended himself. Has Casemiro played in Holland? No, but X, Y, Z. And it was a good, decent conversation, and I hope he does well. I feel that United this season has been a real disappointment. Last season was good, maybe even very good. And going back to like January, February of this year, when he had his full team, United were going to places like Barcelona. Probably the best game I've seen this season. The 2 matches against Barcelona.
Yeah.
When Manchester United beat Newcastle in the final at Wembley, beat Manchester City. So that's getting close to the team he wants. And you would think in addition to that, add a striker, which we all hope for in the summer. Well, he wanted Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Who he didn't get him because the Glazers, because of financial fair play, because of poor recruitment in the past. But I also don't think it's unfair to say, has Anthony been a good signing? And it's hard to argue that he has been so far. That said, he did well in Istanbul, and I thought he did well against Chelsea. So we're on this real roller coaster with Manchester United at the moment. When I saw the stories about dissent in the dressing room, well, I speak to all of these people. I speak to the agents. I get to hear what's going on. And my take on it is, and I spoke a lot with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer about this. If you've got 25 players, most of them full internationals, you can never, ever, ever keep them all happy. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I interviewed a lad a couple of weeks ago, and I said to Ollie, I'm going to meet him, and he said, don't think he's very happy with me. But actually he was. He spoke really well of him. So you can't keep 25 people happy. And at the fringes of that, you might get 3 or 4 of them who try and undermine you. And that happens in every football club. That doesn't mean a dressing room has been lost. That just means it's a challenge for the manager. And it becomes more pertinent when the team are not playing well, when they're losing. But what's the alternative? Concede to the players. Go, all right, let's change the manager again. Let's go on this rinse and repeat that we've seen too many times at Manchester United. And I don't think that's a good thing either.
If I can ask you, Andy, what's your take, just kind of like your personal or professional take, both of them, on how Ten Hag handled it this week with banning Kavis Solihull, I think it was David McDonnell, Rob Dawson, and Samuel Luckhurst from the Chelsea press conference? Because there's some people that are questioning whether it's stepping in the way of free press, and there's other people responding and saying, well, Ten Hag did that because he didn't get a right to respond. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on it.
Well, I'm a journalist, so banning journalists is never something that I'm going to come out in favour of. I think a free press is important. I think an independent press, United We Stand, has always been independent. You should ask difficult questions. You should ask challenging questions. You should bring questions to the club. And I do this every week. I go to the club and say, look, I've been told this, and you're doing that to stand it up. And sometimes it will be true, and sometimes it will not be true. From the club's perspective, they want journalists to come to them when they've got a story, and that's a fair journalistic principle. Football is a bit different because I see all kinds of nonsense every single day, especially about transfers, pushed by agents, trying to link the players with the biggest clubs, including Manchester United. And if you went to the club, stuff would just get knocked down. It's a fair journalistic principle. The club have been very frustrated with some of the coverage, but then it's not for the club to judge what is right or wrong in terms of journalism. And it's full of inconsistencies here. So I will have fans saying to me, we've got to stop the leaks. Who's leaking? We've got to stop the leaks. What you're hearing, by the way. Now, I'm really sorry, but you can't have it both ways. I mean, I've got contacts who have developed over 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It takes that long. Do you just want to ring them all up? Say, look, can't speak to you anymore. Not allowed to be a journalist. And this idea that journalists should reveal the sources, I'm sorry. I'd rather go to prison than reveal my sources. And I
Well,
think
it kind of goes against the
journalist.
idea of good journalism, doesn't it? Like the idea of a good source is that you protect it. I understand that.
So
But
I'll often say in podcasts or in my writing, I've spoke to this people and my understanding is this. And someone said, why don't you say who the person is? Well, if I did, that person wouldn't speak to me anymore. So I wouldn't be able to do my job.
It's a
So
strange one.
you either trust my sources and that I'm just speaking for myself, or you don't. I think that I do my job well. I'm diligent when I do it. Might not always tell people what they want to hear, but that's not my job. My job is to tell people the truth and to try and untangle what the truth is in football when there's often 2 or 3 versions of the truth.
If I can ask you one question before you pop off to the press conference, you've obviously followed United and you've been close to the club throughout Solskjaer, every manager post Fergie. What sort of genuine feeling do you get as it stands with Ten Hag? Because he's had the rough with the smooth. With last season we did progress. This season, let's be honest, we haven't progressed as a football team. Do you feel that it is connected? It's as connected behind the scenes as it possibly can be when this takeover is still bumbling on. But do you get like a folding from within sort of impression?
No, I think he's concentrating on the football, but you've got this huge elephant in the room, which is the takeover, the strategic review. And it's all right him saying to me, it's just in the background, I'm ignoring it. I would expect him to say that. I know for a fact that some players don't just think it's in the background. They're concerned about it. They want to know what is happening at Manchester United. And that is not unreasonable. I know staff members who want to know what's going on as well. And we've seen some departures. Again, I'm trying to find the truth all the time. 27th of September, I went up to Richard Arnold face-to-face in Munich and said, are you leaving? Because it's my understanding that you're leaving. I've been told that. And he looked at me like I had 5 heads. Absolutely not. No, news to me. And maybe he was telling the truth at that time. But 6 weeks later, it was announced that he was leaving. So I'm not going to stop doing my job and asking questions. And other journalists will do exactly the same thing. You've got people jockeying for position, staff members, players, because they don't know what is coming next. There's senior people worried about the future of the club, about their own jobs. And a lot of these people aren't multimillionaire footballers. They're normal people doing a normal job. They're Manchester United fans who work and are proud to work for that football club. So much of this is on the Glazers because them procrastinating and waiting for far too long has led to this uncertainty. And the sooner we have more certainty, the better, because there are the big ticket issues which need sorting out. Old Trafford, I've written about that more than any journalist. To a lesser extent, Carrington, which is still a cracking training ground, by the way. It's almost gone too far online now. If I mention Old Trafford, people go, be careful you don't get wet. I'm sorry, it's still a really good stadium. Carrington training ground is a really good training ground. I travel around Europe, going to training grounds all the time as part of my job. It's not falling apart, but the club needs investment, clearly needs investment. That's why they went to market. And the manager will benefit from any certainty that comes from any deal. We keep being told a deal's going to happen within 2 weeks, I've been told that now for about 12 weeks. So you've got to unpick what's going on.
It's what I keep saying to people who keep like there's a lot of really good journalists who have kind of been burned throughout this whole process because of the Glazers' procrastination. It's not the fact that their sources are bad; it's the fact that the goalposts keep getting moved constantly further and further 1 week down the line, which is the situation we still find ourselves in. It's the 8th of December now, so I mean, any sort of positive impact on the January transfer window is extremely unlikely.
Well, I spoke to Erik about that, and he said that it's unlikely, and he knows more about that than I do.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a serious injury to a player, as we saw last season, Sabitzer came. So you'd never rule something out like that. But also, if there's a takeover, then that changes the economics of everything. Erik Ten Hag is only working within the parameters of what he understands. And there's people around him who will be worried about their jobs as well. There's so much uncertainty. And that doesn't help the football club. It doesn't help anybody. And there's so much positive energy waiting to be unleashed. Demand for tickets at Old Trafford has never been higher, even though the team have been misfiring. United, absolutely massive. And while this season has looked like a complete disaster, I can't help looking at the league table.
It's weird, isn't it? It's so weird.
And I'm like, how on earth are we only 3 points
Makes no sense.
City? And I went to Goodison last night. I went there for work, and Newcastle got beaten 3-0. So
steamrolled.
And on the way home, I was listening to Tottenham losing. So everyone is losing.
Look,
I'll go to Old Trafford on Saturday. Hopefully United can beat Bournemouth. Huge game against Bayern Munich. It would be a major failure if United went out of Europe, and the manager would have to take some like criticism as well. I wouldn't mind the Europa League that much because I don't think this team's good enough to win the Champions League. But I think the Europa League, I quite like the idea of a run to Dublin, meet Liverpool in the final, beat them on penalties, away we go.
Andy, I've got here, right here, I've got my first ever ticket I've managed to get in the ballot for Anfield, and I'm crapping myself.
Yeah.
I'm crapping myself.
The last 2 seasons, I've been in the away end, and I've been to my mates like, come on, we've got to go. We've got to stand there. And like the level of enthusiasm to go has been so low. And that 4-0 in April, the one before the 7-0, I decided I'm going to stay at the end no matter what. And I'm just stood there by myself, leaning against a barrier. I've got thousands of Scousers laughing at me. And I'm thinking, at least I'm not you. You know what I mean? We might be losing, but it could be worse.
Some sort of victory.
I saw you subscribe to the mag the other day. You just missed the deadline, Sam, but we will get you a copy posted out. And if anyone's watching, support United We Stand. You know, I could have put that interview anywhere. And you can get a digital edition. You can read it on your phone or your tablet around the world. I've not put the price up for 9 years. And we work really hard to produce a good mag that tells it how it is.
I'll make sure I put the link in the description as well. I'll also put the link to the UWS channel. I see you're starting to do a few videos regularly. So hopefully we can come on and help.
I've done a couple, yeah. I've not got anything planned there. I've been doing video diaries from away games for 30 years. So I did one in Istanbul. And then they said, well, will you talk about the interview? So I did that yesterday. So
cool. Well, make sure you follow the links in the description. Andy, I appreciate your time. Good luck at the press conference today. And look, I hope that Chelsea game, the response this week, it showed that's not a manager who's lost half a dressing room. It's just that you can't play like that if you've lost half the dressing room. And Bournemouth, they've got 10 out of their 16 points this season in the last 4 games. So they're a team quite in form. But if we can do that, because please don't go to Anfield and get battered. Because it doesn't really matter how much progress you make. If we go there and it's another hammering, it's going to be a bad feeling.
And look, this is going to happen because I still don't think Manchester United are near the levels that the team should be. I like Bournemouth's manager a lot. Saw him closely in Spain, but you've got to beat Bournemouth at Old Trafford. But then you had to beat Crystal Palace at Old Trafford, and that didn't happen. Bayern game is a big one. I sense like a fragile confidence, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that Chelsea, which was the best game for me at Old Trafford this season,
easily
the turning point in the same way that Liverpool was last season. I'm going to have to go to the press conference.
Look, Andy, I appreciate your time. As I said, the links are in the description. Really nice to chat to you, and I hope we get to chat in the future, dude.
Take care, Sam. Bye-bye.